Okay, so I'm often asked by my business mentee students about how I manage my week and how I plan my week. So I thought I'd dive into it for you guys today. I've just returned back from the south of France, having spent a week in Cannes, in the sun, chilling, doing a little bit of work, but primarily relaxing. And therefore this morning I've allocated the first hour and a half of my deep work block to essentially mapping out the remainder of my week and what that looks like and key variables to prioritize. So I thought I'd dive into it for you, and therefore you guys can replicate this in some capacity or take inspiration from it. So first and foremost, I thought I'd showcase my calendar and what a typical Tuesday looks like for me. So as you guys can see, I don't take calls on Tuesdays, excluding one call I have here, which is my mentorship call, my group coaching call for all individuals that have enrolled in Peak Business Systems School, in which I help them start, grow, and scale their online fitness and health coaching businesses. That's an open Q&A call for an hour. I host those twice a week to support the one-to-one calls I conduct with all enrollees on a weekly basis as well. And of course, the direct access they have to me via WhatsApp. But that takes place on a Tuesday. Other than that, no calls take place on a Tuesday. It's a day for productive output, essentially. So as you guys can see here, my deep work starts at 10 a.m. and it ends at 2 p.m. Typically, prior to this, I train, I play tennis, I play paddle, I resistance train, I cardiovascular session train, essentially. It depends on what I want to do that morning as to how I choose to allocate my hours upon waking before my deep work. However, I don't start deep work from the moment I wake up. The reason being is there's no need to do so. With this business model specifically and the variables that contribute to financial success, I don't need to be spending 12 hours per day behind a computer. It's absolutely unnecessary, and if anything, it's counterproductive. You lose sight of what's important in terms of priorities, you become demotivated, you're unhappy, you're unfulfilled, and therefore the hours prior to my deep work upon waking, which is typically about 7 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m. I wake up, I allocate to whatever sport, whatever training activity I want to take care of. And of course, that also factors in how my girlfriend chooses to spend her time as well, because she works a more conventional job. And therefore, in the morning, she may need to train. I may need to look after the dogs, take them for a walk, whatever it is, right? So we switch back and forth there. So once I finish my deep work today, I'll then be going for a dog walk because my girlfriend is in the office, and therefore I'll take care of the dogs today, who are sat behind me, and I apologize for any point you can hear them barking. I'll take care of the dogs there, and then I'll consume my first meal of the day at about 3 p.m. That'll be a light meal. Typically, it's about a litre worth of kefir, which sounds ridiculous, but I don't want to be consuming anything particularly heavy in terms of food, particularly not solid food sources, whilst I'm still taking care of my work responsibilities. I'll then take care of light work, some more admin-related tasks, communication with people via WhatsApp in terms of clients for both my Peak Health System service and, of course, my Peak Business System mentorship. School activities, school posts, editing, whatever it may be. These are things which don't require that much creative output, but require more just getting it done, essentially putting the work in. I'll then consume my last meal of the day, my final meal, which I'll consume about 2,000 calories, between 6 to 7 typically, whilst I do some light admin stuff or consume some content. And also my light work blogs as well, I consume content. I'm listening to podcasts, audiobooks, I'm watching content from the individuals that I want to learn from directly, whether that be through courses, mentorships, YouTube videos, whatever it is. This time is used more so for work which benefits me in the future, but isn't requiring me to be particularly creative. And then of course have my live group coaching call, and then I'll finish the day with an upper body session today. Having woken up a little bit later, having traveled back from Nice yesterday with a delayed flight. So that's what my day looks like, and that's a typical day. Thursdays and Fridays are much more call heavy. I take all of my one-to-one calls with both my Peak Health System service, where I work with my clients in a one-to-one capacity, and my Peak Business System mentorship as well. I take all of those calls on Thursdays and Fridays. Therefore, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are very productive days in terms of output. Now, I'll come to the left of my screen here and show you guys how I choose to typically map out my day. Again, I don't use any particularly complex systems. There's no Notion templates, nothing like this. I like using the notes on my phone as a system because, again, of course, it connects with my monitor here. I just like keeping things extremely simple and easy. I'm not an individual that enjoys leveraging complex systems and processes. I always refer back to what works extremely well for me, and that's just typically using notes in this capacity here. So as you guys can see, daily rules. Provided I adhere to these rules on a daily basis, I will have a productive day. So first rule, remain fasted until all deep work has been completed. That's an absolute non-negotiable. So until 2 p.m, I will remain fasted. And again, that time is used for typically creative outputs. And therefore I want to be fasted and at my best cognitively during those hours of the day, those early morning hours. No content can be consumed prior to the completion of any deep work, even if that's productive content. So stuff I can be directly learning from in terms of courses, mentorships, YouTube videos, podcasts, audiobooks. I cannot consume any content prior to the completion of all deep work. And the reason being is because I want to be an individual that takes pride in, or rather prioritizes production and output and creation of content as opposed to consumption of content. Therefore, in terms of my day, that's how I manage my day. The first half of the day is for creation, the second half of the day is for consumption. Daily rule 3, no exchanging of or responding to any messages prior to the completion of deep work. Extremely important. I don't want to be bogged down in WhatsApp, iMessage, email prior to completion of any deep work. And there's no need to do so either. Again, I finish my deep work block at 2 p.m. every single day. Anyone that is messaging me on that day can wait until 2 p.m. for a response. There's no sense of unbelievable urgency for me to be looking at my WhatsApp, iMessages every single hour, every day. It's unbelievably counterproductive if I were to do this. Okay, keys to the kingdom. Now, what I mean by this really is keys to this business model specifically, and there's 4 of them. Create content is the primary key. Reach out to prospects via any medium in which, of course, you have access to them. It could be via social platforms. It could be you have access to them personally. It could be email. It could be through a friend, whatever it may be, through referral, word of mouth. Service your clients. Extremely straightforward there. Of course, take great care and pride in this. And then finally, run ads. Those are the 4 keys to this business model. It's not much more complex than that. Of course, you will then acquire word of mouth, referral clients, etc. on top of this, but these are the variables you need to take care of to facilitate that acquisition. As you guys can then see, I then have my list of priorities for today. So plan my weekly schedule, that's been completed. We're good to go there. Record a video for Peak Business on how I plan my week. That's what I'm doing right now. Put together an Asana board and record Loom introducing that for my new client in the Peak Business Mentorship CC. The Asana board will be used to map out each week's priorities for him specifically. And that's very much personalized to him based on his current obligations in terms of work. He operates a personal training facility, has a gym which he operates from and takes care of himself. And therefore, I need to map out how exactly he can proceed with the growth and scale of his online business around his in-person hours and his financial commitments there and time constraints also. Contact Aura to ensure they send my client Chris replacement Aura ring. That happens from time to time. His battery died. Well, it just fails. It cuts out after about 16 hours, even though I only ordered it for him last September. So, of course, we're covered by a warranty there. So I got that sorted. I follow up with my client Tanya, following a particular thing I need to discuss with her. Plan 3x long-form pieces of content for Peak Health System YouTube. Of course, that being the primary acquisition platform for my one-to-one Peak Health System service. So I'll plan 3 pieces of content today, which I've already been ideating over the last week or so. I'll just finalize what I'm going to be recording most likely tomorrow. Plan 3 pieces of long-form content for Peak Business System YouTube, which I'll be recording on Thursday in the morning prior to, of course, the occurrence of my one-to-one calls. Record intro video for Peak Business System School automation. So for those individuals that enroll in my business mentorship, I want to finalize the automated message they receive, which is recording via screen studio like this, in which I introduce them to the program, how to access it, how to book in for their call with me, etc. And then, of course, in terms of things that I want to then be consuming, I want to then watch a piece of content from Sean Casey and Adam Sullivan. Adam Sullivan doing about $1 million per month right now in Aussie dollars with his low ticket business in the fitness space, and his acquisition methods being dissimilar to mine. He primarily uses Instagram as an acquisition method. So I want to watch this. It's about an hour long, this piece of content. You guys can see that on screen here. It's on Adam's YouTube channel. It was uploaded 2 years ago. The discussion between these two, I think, will be really interesting, really insightful. I watched part of it already yesterday whilst on the plane, so I'll be spending some time consuming that today, most likely whilst just taking care of things in the house, like cooking, etc. Cooking my final meal for the day or training. And then finally, I'm going to then be working my life manifesto and this was inspired by a conversation between my old client, Ryan Clogg, who I worked with for Peak Health back in 2020. And Ravi Abavula. I apologize if I mispronounced his name there, but Ravi, I've been following your content for a while. But I'll be consuming this piece of content. And the reason why I'll then be creating my life manifesto or refining that personally is because I had absolute clarity and vision on what I wanted to achieve from the age of 16 to 18 as it pertains to what life I wanted to live, being in central London, living in an apartment block called MC Gardens, the degree of financial success I could acquire, financial freedom, life freedom, day-to-day freedom, etc. And I lost sight of that to an extent as a byproduct of a few personal occurrences over the last few years and just felt a little bit like I was unaligned with where I wanted to be. So regaining alignment and absolute clarity on that again is of huge importance to me, and should be of huge importance to anyone. I very much believe in the life you visualize is the life you create, and therefore as a byproduct start to live. And if you don't have absolute clarity on that, that can go horribly wrong very quickly, and you can find yourself in a state you don't want to be in. So I believe that's very important, and therefore allocate time to that in my light work block later today. Okay, so now if I refer to my notes block here in the middle, I have, as you guys can see, this note section as far as called Keys to Business Success. And it just basically lists all the things I need to take care of on a weekly basis, notes that I'm aware of and thinking of, very cognizant of, etc. So obviously you have my day-to-day lists in terms of my priorities for today. I'll list that here so you guys can see that. I've already been through that already. I then have my personal items to take care of. And again, these personal items are equally as important as my business items, because if I'm unhappy in a personal sense, in terms of my personal life, it will bleed into my business, and that's not positive by any means. I want to take care of myself on a personal level, and therefore as a byproduct show up to my highest degree possible, my most emphatic version possible in a business sense. So basic things like just taking care of paddle bookings. I'm playing paddle with Charlie Morgan on Friday nights and a few of our friends, sending his business partner Bolus to tennis coaches, just basic things like this, making sure that I can cook dinner for my girlfriend tomorrow night. Really simple things, but things that are extremely important. My tennis practice bookings, my paddle practice bookings, etc. Simple stuff. Client delivery. A few really basic things to take care of today or over the next couple of days, having prioritized client delivery whilst I was away in the south of France and over the weekend. I typically do a lot of my client delivery stuff over the weekend in terms of activities which are more not one-to-one based, but more kind of admin based. So client programming, nutrition plan refinement, supplementation plan refinement, blood work analysis, sleep metric analysis, basic stuff like this I take care of over the weekend because I have a lot of time to do so. My girlfriend teaches Pilates, so she's teaching pretty often throughout the weekend, so I have ample time to do this, which means that by Monday and Tuesday, I don't have much to do on the client delivery front, apart from, of course, check in with them, ensure that everything's fine on their end, answer any questions, etc. So a few bits and bobs here. Content keys, and these are things that I add to on a daily and weekly basis, and these are extremely straightforward, but the reason why I have this in this folder here is because, again, content is such a key component of this business model. I want to ensure that at all times I'm optimizing everything I possibly can do in that domain of my business. So just a few observations that I made note of or was aware of whilst I was traveling back and forth between Nice over the last week. You must be truly authentic to yourself and your character in this current market right now. We are craving authenticity in this market, or rather the consumers of content are. And therefore being truly authentic to yourself is extremely important, more so than ever. Having come from the last 2 to 3 years of content which is extremely scripted and overly produced, we're now craving and desiring as a market content which is much more authentic to the character and personality of the individual creating it. So again, leaning into that as a variable of priority for myself, which I believe to be a huge advantage for me personally. Keep my YouTube content as broad as possible and filter through my VSL Calendly/Call application. The note I'm making here really is for Peak Health Systems as an acquisition method. So in terms of how I'd prioritize acquisition for Peak Health previously, I'd very much been too niched in my approach, which I was creating content specifically for my ideal client only, and therefore not acquiring enough eyeballs, and therefore as a byproduct of that, my funnel in terms of top of funnel wasn't big enough for acquisition. Therefore, my objective now is to keep my YouTube content as broad as possible, whilst also accompanying that with content very specific to my ideal client, like client testimonials, documentation of my work with them, etc., which is extremely specific to an ideal set of people who will come from my top of funnel in terms of top of funnel awareness. Very straightforward premise, easily facilitated, and I now have absolute clarity on how to go ahead with that as well. As I noted here, I was previously uploading content that was too niched for Peak Health. Now, again, the reason why I list all of these things here in my notes is because they're extremely important to be able to refer back to. If you lose sight of these things on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis, you will lose track of where you are and what you need to prioritize specifically, or what refinements to be made to your business. Okay, another note. Flexing lifestyle in an authentic way can bring huge amounts of attention, which results in the building of a bigger brand. Being an occupant of the fitness and health space, I personally perceived it to be... I had a negative perspective of flexing lifestyle in any capacity as an operator in that space, because I saw it being so heavily abused in the make money space. But I do think that if you're an authentic, genuine character and you choose to document and showcase your lifestyle, it actually supports the acquisition of more eyeballs in a way in which you can do so in a very genuine manner, without being a dickhead, basically, to be perfectly frank. And I was very fearful of being perceived as a dickhead previously, because I'm not that person. I don't live an outrageous lifestyle by any means. I live very much within my means. But I do think showing more of the personal side of things and lifestyle side of things is very advantageous in terms of ensuring that people can resonate with you on a more personal level. And as a byproduct of that, have more trust and faith in you, and therefore more likely to become a customer of yours. And then final content key, introduce high road to track which YouTube videos result in more conversions. Extremely straightforward one there. Okay, cool. So we're cracking on. So let's keep going. Peak Business System content. This is where I map out my content for the week for Peak Business. And again, I'm recording a video for that purpose right now. Record a video on how I plan my week. That's the first video I'm recording, doing it right now. Record a video on how the impact and on the impact of AI in terms of what they'll have on the health coaching business space, my perception of that, and then a few written posts for school. And again, you guys can see what variables need to prioritize in my business. Uploading of content in terms of top of funnel awareness, and of course, content for nurturing purposes in the resources I already have and have produced, like school, for example. My reading list. So again, my light work blocks are used for consumption of content in terms of productive content, and of course, taking care of admin tasks. So here, of course, I have my reading list in terms of 3 books I want to prioritize for the next month. And I'll listen to as an audiobook whilst I take care of responsibilities like training, walking the dogs, etc. So I've got Stolen Focus, The Almanac, and The Richest Man in Babylon. The Almanac I've listened to many times. I listen to every single year, so this is why I'm doing so again. Stolen Focus is a new book that I'm extremely interested in listening to as an audiobook, and The Richest Man in Babylon. And I personally choose not to read books as hardback copies or on Kindle. I listen to them in audiobook format because it's a much more efficient way of consuming. And I can do that whilst, of course, take care of things like getting my steps in, walking the dogs, training, etc. Okay, school refinements. Again, of course, my Peak Business System is hosted entirely on school and also via WhatsApp. So I've got a few refinements I want to make here, including implementing the learnings from Nick Sarayev's School Success. Nick being the current school GOAT, doing about 340K per month. He uploaded a very candid video, which is an hour long, on how to facilitate, or how he has facilitated that degree of success with his offer. Also wrote a very lengthy school post on it and a supporting and accompanying document in which he listed the variables that contributed towards his success. So I'll implement my learnings from that this week. Weekly non-negotiables, and these are things to remind myself of what I need to prioritize on a weekly basis without fail. Keys to Kingdom, obviously I referred to the 4 of them already. In terms of how that actually manifests, extremely straightforward. 3 long-form pieces on Billy Harris Health YouTube, 3 long-form pieces on Billy Harris Business YouTube, 7x short-form uploads on the Billy Harris Health IG and YouTube. And then, of course, the same thing applies to Billy Harris Business. And then, of course, I want to start introducing use of Twitter for further networking purposes and, of course, acquisition as well. And these things, in terms of contributing towards acquisition, on top of course, conversing with prospects, etc., these aren't hard to do and take care of by any means. And if you think about the amount of time you have to allocate to these activities, it's not particularly time intensive at all, particularly given that as a market space, there's now the desire for more authentic, less hyper-produced content. So 3 long-form videos can take me, in terms of recording and editing, 3 hours. It's extremely straightforward, not particularly difficult at this moment in time. Thumbnail ideation refinements, yeah, it takes a little bit more time for sure, depending on how you want to present yourself and the brand you are building there and how you want to leverage YouTube most effectively. But yeah, these activities, as you can see, they don't require a huge amount of time on a weekly basis at all. And these are integral to facilitating growth and acquisition. Daily rules, just listing them then there again. Peak health system content, long form specifically. So I'll be mapping that out later today. As you guys can see, that's listed on my task list for today. Acquisition activities, again, just the things I want to be taken care of. So one of the primary ones for this week very much is reaching out to and reactivating all former clients and prospects. So my prospect list being about 15,000 people now, in terms of former clients also that I can reactivate and potentially restart working with. There's about 800 of them. And often is the case that individuals I've worked with previously come back on board once I converse with them again and check in with them, see where they're at, what they need help with, etc. So I'll be creating that message in terms of how I reignite that conversation this week. The first message I send each prospect will encourage them to rejoin and start a conversation there. If they choose not to rejoin, and that's perfectly fine, of course, it's just, again, I'm offering the opportunity. The second message I'll send each prospect will ask them to refer someone to me for 10% of the fee that I charge. So I charge 15K for the first 12 weeks of service. That's 15K GBP. Therefore, for every referral I receive, I send that person £1,500. Or if they don't have anyone to refer me to, which can be the case as well, I will ask them if they'd like me to host any live group coaching calls for their customers. So a lot of the clients I work with, of course, are in the education and business info space. And therefore, if I can host any calls to their group coaching, their students, their customers, it's beneficial to me and to them. There's mutual benefit there, right? So there's more eyeballs on my offer, and therefore I have better nurturing opportunities there, because most likely the individuals that enrolled in their programs have access to capital and therefore are good prospects for me as well. And that's why I so happily speak at many masterminds, host live group coaching calls online, weekly recurring calls, etc., oftentimes free of charge, because it gives me a huge opportunity to acquire customers because they're financially qualified. Most likely the individuals whose group I'm hosting the calls in, like a Tyler Newman, for example, or Charlie Morgan, they're friends of mine or former clients of mine, and therefore they can vouch for the quality of my service as well. And therefore nurturing via that mechanism is extremely easy to facilitate on my part for very little allocation of time. And then I also have my competitor analysis to conduct this week as well. So yeah, if you guys got any questions about how I manage my week and how I plan it, don't hesitate to let me know in the comment section down below. If, of course, you're interested in working with me in a one-to-one capacity, you're, of course, very much welcome to check out Peak Business Systems School. The link is in the description, in which I help you start, grow, and scale your online fitness and health coaching business like I've done so successfully since I was 18 years old. I'm now 27 and now run a multi-7-figure business in that space. But yeah, if you guys got any questions, don't hesitate to drop them to me in the comment section down below. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I shall see you in the next one.